Alright, YouTube, time for another video at one of my locations I normally chill at. But this video is mostly going to be about nostalgia. I made that video about life without social media, part 1, and I'll continue on that series whenever I feel like it. There's a few other ones I immediately have in mind. I just got to kind of, organize my thoughts on it. But this video is mainly going to be about how I think we've, as a society, have run out of things to be nostalgic about. And we are now at the point where are we nostalgic about having nostalgia to be excited about it. The most obvious one of this I can think of is one of the big sectors of hobbies that I developed over the really dating from, as far back as the late 2000s, but I would say about 2010, 2011 is when it kicked off, was, garage sales, flea markets, stuff like that, mostly looking for digital or a physical media. Digital media was starting to grow in popularity even as far back as the early 2010s. People didn't want Blu-rays or DVDs. People didn't want, Steam started to explode in popularity, and therefore people just started buying games digitally. People forget, if you go all the way back to when Steam was first released in 2004, it was originally, I'm pretty sure, hated by, I was actually like a big holdout on Steam because I viewed it as DRM. I was also, pretty young. I didn't have a credit card or nothing, so, but yeah, Steam, I believe, was originally not liked as a platform. Now people think it can do no wrong or whatever, and they make all these like Gabe Newell memes and stuff, which are kind of cringe at this point. Digital media started to become the popular thing in the early 2010s, and I do see a little bit of a swing back to physical media. There's a little bit of an uptick on some people talking about it, and also, retro video game collecting has always, that just went insane throughout the 2010s. 2010 through 2019 was insane on how much everything just skyrocketed in price. But the main thing is that throughout the 2010s and I think COVID started the 2020s, and that was one of the most unique times in human history. But throughout the 2010s, I don't know if there's really anything to be nostalgic about, because so much of the internet, the time spent by, younger people, 20-somethings, 30-somethings even, and of course maybe teens, the 2010s was not a time for really a lot of like happiness and growth and new things. It was a lot of, there was a lot of just kind of the rise of this streamlined, generic tapioca pudding culture that is very, very boring, and it's very, very, similar everywhere you go. Um, and it's mostly because of the internet and how much, ideas now spread through it. But, think about some of these things. Video games, I'll bring up that one first. Like, there's no more retro stuff to be nostalgic about. Nothing's like, back in the early 2010s, people would talk about this game's a hidden gem or something like that. And there's no hidden gems anymore. Every game is now, there's like a YouTuber out there making an essay about that game's a hidden gem, even if the game's trash. Not every, there's literally like multiple YouTubers doing reviews of pretty much every game that's ever existed now on these retro consoles. There's nothing to be nostalgic about. It's kind of over and done. And, modern day video games, you're happy to get one big release a year now. So, I don't know. I don't think there's a ton to be nostalgic about there, and I don't think a lot of people who are younger today, I'm talking like early 20s or late teens, or even, a middle schooler who, sometimes I look back on my middle school days with nostalgia, and So like, I mean, I would think a middle schooler today, or somebody who's maybe in like late high school, early college now, who was in middle school, that would be like 7 years ago or so, 5 years ago, six. Like, they don't, like, what's there to be nostalgic about? Um, yeah, I'm sure there's some things, that kids today enjoy that are unique for their experience and they'll look back on in 10 years or 15 years. But I don't see much of it. I don't think it's anywhere near as abundant as it was in the 70s, 80s, 90s, and maybe early 2000s. Um, I just don't see it. I mean, another great example of this is, I think, in the music industry. I mean, if you look at, I mean, I'm not a huge music historian, but I was doing some homework on this, and if you look at the music scene of today, of like when you're talking about the stuff that still sells, like the highest grossing people, we're not talking like some underground artist that maybe like sells 10,000 copies at best or something like that. But if you look at, I mean, it's like someone like Taylor Swift should not still be the number one overall singer on the planet right now. I mean, Taylor Swift was around in 2008, 2009 with like that You Belong With Me song, and that's like I'm pretty sure that's her breakthrough hit. And you're talking about like, someone like that should not still be the number. I mean, she wasn't maybe quite number one in 08, 09, but she was, winning all these, up and coming awards and growing rapidly and entering that echelon of, the solo female top 40 pop artist. That's over 15 years ago now, or it's about 15, 16 years ago. It's like nobody really has that longevity. Even people like Michael Jackson, when he was a kid with the Jackson 5, and that would have been in like I guess that late 60s. And then he was like kind of like irrelevant until like and then when he went solo in the 80s. And then by the mid 90s though, he kind of started to lose popularity. And then he had a slight renaissance in popularity in like the early 2000s, and he passed away, in the mid to late 2000s. But like even someone like Michael Jackson, who's maybe arguably like the signature pop artist in American history, even he didn't last as long as like a Taylor Swift did. And I think it's partially due to the lack of growth, the lack of anything new, and just this recycling of, I mean, I don't have anything specifically against her, because she's probably a perfectly normal, at least as normal as someone can be who's as wealthy as she is. But it's just like, this shouldn't be the same like 16 years now. Like, there should be somebody else who's replaced her. She should be, a few years ago, she should have been considered maybe like older news, and then she's kind of just doing like voice acting work somewhere, and then she has like a reunion tour for millennials when when millennials are well into their 40s or something like that. Now, I mean, the oldest millennials are 40 or so, early 40s, but like most millennials are, just 30 somethings. Like, this shouldn't be the number one act on the planet anymore. Um, so that's another example of just like, what are people going to be nostalgic about, because it's the same cycle over and over again. Like, nothing's changing. Everything's very flat and dormant and stagnant. And I think that you're seeing this in a lot of subcultures. Um, the only thing I see growing is everyone's obsession with fucking pickleball. I see that everywhere I go. I'm about to go to the gym, and there's like old people, younger people. Everyone's obsessed with fucking pickleball. Jeez. But that'll become, I mean, that's like, I mean, I'm kind of saying that tongue in cheek, but I mean, I guess that is something kind of new, but it's not, that's not like a major thing. But yeah, I don't know. Like, what are we, we're not really seeing anything new, and we've kind of exhausted all forms of nostalgia. So what the hell is going on with society? When do people snap out of doing the same thing over and over they've been doing, and which is, I maintain, it's rapid obsession with internet, rampant obsession with social media, and not having fun, not going out and meeting new people, not going out and trying new things. I think that is the number one cause of all the world's problems. But yeah, I hope people, start to realize, like, I mean, is it too late? I don't think it's too late, but it's not in a good state, that's for sure. So, I guess the question to ask is, are we running out of things to be nostalgic about? Have we run out of things to be nostalgic? Or is just the subculture that I'm a part of, is that just, is that just the stuff that's run out of nostalgia? Because maybe there's other things. Maybe there's stuff that people are still reminiscing about. Maybe there's still growth in certain sectors that I haven't observed. But I see everywhere I go is just people not really, they're not really seeing any sort of new stuff, and they're not seeing any new stuff to be new old stuff, if that makes sense. Anyway, just my thoughts and I'm out.